The Outdoor Journal. Brought to you by Shimano. Geared for performance.
On today's Outdoor Journal, we travel to the other side of the globe to the island country of Australia. Only this time, no central rainforests or ocean resorts. We're headed to the heart of the outback to view one of the 8 wonders of the world, Uluru, or more commonly known as Ayres Rock. As well, we'll explore the less popular but equally fascinating geological wonder, the Olgas. Now, if Ayres Rock is the heart of the land down under, then these babies are surely its soul. Australia lies in the southern hemisphere and is almost the size of the US. It's divided into 7 states, with the Northern Territory being the most central. And it's here in the rugged outback that the Aborigines believed was the center of the universe. Now, I've been to Australia on several occasions, but believe it or not, I've never traveled to the center, or more accurately, the Red Center. And more importantly, have never set eyes on the Great Rock, the world's largest monolith. In simple terms, it's the biggest one-piece solid object on the planet. Geologically stable for over 80 million years, Australia is easily the world's flattest and driest inhabited continent. With over 70% of its terrain featureless and arid, it's little wonder that it's home to some of the most unique flora and fauna on Earth. Wilderness, by definition, is a wild region, as of forest or desert, a waste, a tract of land inhabited only by wild animals. Well, that being the case, even today that would apply to most of this country, which still remains for the most part wild, remote, and inaccessible. This forbiddenly dry stretch of land just outside of Alice Springs is typical of the terrain found throughout the Red Center, and just begs for a walkabout. Seeing such a landscape so peculiar makes you kind of think you've left Earth and set foot on a strange new world. What did the first explorers think of when they gazed at this scarlet expanse? Weathering, given enough time, and Australia certainly has had lots of that, over 50 million years, levels any surface. And what was once rock of quartz and iron is now rust. That's right, oxidization has given it that red color. A close comparison would be the surface of Mars. Not surprisingly, because as I mentioned before, you can't help but feel something inherently alien out here. They say seeing it from up above at sunrise in a basket attached to a drifting hot air balloon is a must-do. And who might argue? So, next stop, Spinifex ballooning. First things first, a quick check on wind direction and speed.
1, 2,
And now
3.
it's all hands on deck. Here the guests are also the crew. What a great idea. Charge your customers and then have them do all the work. Leave it up to the Aussies.
Lovely. Now folks, what we're going to be doing is hooking about 20 steel cables from the envelope to the basket. They'll suspend us during flight. Now folks, we're going to make a fair bit of noise with the fan. Everybody just gives the fan a wide berth while it's running. Don't be shy, folks.
Both ends, folks.
The sooner you get in, the better. Come to the other end as well. The people at the other end don't all...
Everywhere you look, vast expanses of virtually unexplored desert outback and magnificent wilderness areas. It's no wonder Terra Australis Incognito has long been regarded as the last frontier by world travelers. Beam me aboard, Scotty. The first laws to protect scenic areas in Australia were passed in Tasmania in 1863, and Australia's first national park, the world's second, was established in 1879. Today, over 100 years later, there are over 3,200 parks, reserves, and refugee areas comprising of more than 40 million hectares of wilderness, making Australia one of the world leaders in conservation of habitat and preservation of wildlife. Well, I definitely agree with the critics. Hot air ballooning over the red center is a must-do. Now, let's see about getting this baby down. Hey, did any of you guys see the landing gear?
You're right, Scooter.
There we go. Almost. Whoa.
Rock and roll.
We're going over. We're going down, folks. We're going in.
Absolutely.
Nice job, buddy.
If you look at the back of the basket,
The landing is the best part, actually. That is cool. Coming up, we travel to Australia's version of the Grand Canyon. Welcome back to the Outdoor Journal. We're traveling south out of Alice Springs on our 450-kilometer trek through the heartland of Australia's outback, the Red Centre. This is the only road that links Ayres Rock with the rest of the world. In the early days of Central Australian tourism, this long pilgrimage was a hair-raising adventure that in itself became a high point of many a holiday. A great side trip is a visit to Kings Canyon. Sometimes referred to as Australia's Grand Canyon, this extraordinary sandstone chasm plunges over 300 feet into the earth. At the floor of the canyon is a lush exotic oasis of palms and ferns, as well as eerie formations of weathered rock known as the Lost City. Located within a plateau of the George Gill Range, Kings Canyon is a maze of gorges that were created by Kings Creek and its many tributaries, which represent the only source of water in these parts. This is truly an oasis. Although the environment here is still rather harsh, by comparison to the rest of the Red Centre, this is the Garden of Eden. Palms, figs, ferns, and cypress pine flourish with what little water still runs through the canyon. Believe it or not, this is an active riverbed that runs through Kings Canyon here. And unlike most rivers, it pretty well stays dry the way you see it right now all year round, except for maybe once or twice a year when there's just enough water to flow through here to give some life to the greenery that I'm surrounded with. So it's a constant race against the time clock for vegetation in this area. Saplings like this have to grow quick enough and strong enough to withstand the oncoming floods. I think this guy's going to make it okay though. That's the thing that makes this canyon really unique in the world, in that it has so much contrast between the bright green of the riverbed and, of course, the red of the rock. This area was not fully explored until the mid-60s, but today visitors from all over the world regularly stop in on their way to the rock and are invited to walk to the edge of the canyon or along the floor below. And this is the classic confrontation between the immovable object and the irresistible force. Well, I'm not really sure which is which, nor which one's winning. It's a battle that's probably been waging for about a couple hundred years and could go on for several hundred years more. But it's a real good example of just how tough things are here in the outback. Kings Canyon is the perfect place to go bushwalking, an Aussie term coined in 1930 to distinguish the more serious walker from the more casual hiker. Although today it refers to almost anyone who dons on a pair of hiking boots and a backpack, regardless of whether you're going out for a day or a week. And this is why they call it the Red Center. Kings Canyon is the halfway point between Alice Springs and Ayres Rock. The next point of interest is Mount Connor, often mistaken as Ayres Rock by first-time visitors, but in fact it's part of the McDonald mountain range and not a monolith at all. But it's a great warm-up to the big show. Wow, outstanding. The biggest monolith on the planet, one of the 8 wonders of the world, and one of the most recognizable land formations known to mankind. It's everything I thought it'd be and more. Uluru is 3.6 kilometers long and 2.4 kilometers wide and stands an amazing 348 meters above the plains. It's made from one single piece of sandstone that extends 5 kilometers or 3 miles beneath the desert surface. One of the amazing things about Uluru, aside from its sheer size, is its color, or should I say colors. Depending on where you stand and the time of day, that can be anywhere from a light hue of pink to a blazing fluorescent orange. It's little wonder that the Aborigines from the Western Desert viewed this as the center of all things. The Aborigines' history dates back some 40,000 years here in Australia, but it wasn't until 20,000 years later that they made it to the center and actually first saw Ayres Rock. Today, it's a very integral part of their religious belief. For thousands of years, this rock has been the hub for their religious, cultural, territorial, and economic interrelations. But more importantly, the focal point of Dreamtime, the Aborigines' Bible, their Koran. Dreaming is yesterday, today, and tomorrow. It's shape-shifting giants emerging from featureless plains, extending to the edge of the universe. And of course, that universe is centered by the rock, Uluru. Okay, so it's the very hub of the Aborigine culture in this area. It's the leading tourist attraction in Australia. It's one of the 8 wonders of the world's largest monolith. Not bad for a lowly rock, huh? Coming up, the Olgas. Welcome back to the Outdoor Journal and my travel through Australia's Red Centre. After visiting Ayres Rock, I've now traveled 42 kilometers to the west to see the other rock structure that the region is renowned for, the Olgas. Unlike Ayres Rock, the Olgas are not one large rock, but instead a collection of 36 massive domes, the largest of which, Mount Olga, rises to 546 meters. Known to the Aboriginal people as Katajuta, the Olgas are of equal significance as Uluru or Ayres Rock. However, fewer stories about them are known since the telling of these tales are restricted to only the initiated men of the tribe. For the traveler wishing to see the Olgas closer, there are trails through the deep valleys and gorges that surround the area. However, it's important to note that the trails can be strenuous for even the most accomplished hiker. The most impressive of the trek is the Valley of the Winds leading through the Olga Gorge. This scenic walk is quiet, spiritual, and haunting. As the winds blow through the valley, I can almost feel the timeless majesty that I'm treading on. But there's something else here that you feel as you hike to the summit. Small. With the Olgas towering above, it makes me feel quite insignificant. This brings me to the final leg of my journey. I've left the comfort of the 4x4 to travel through the Red Center as the early Europeans did in the 18th century. That is, on the back of a camel. I'm with Kim Shegog of Frontier Camel Tours, a local outfit operating out of Ayres Rock Resort. Now, is this private property or is this...
Yeah, this is basically part of the lease agreement with the national parks. The resort is all lease-owned, all this property just here.
And there's certain trails only that you can ride on?
That's right, yeah. We have to stick to this path. We're not allowed off this path at all.
Okay.
The biggest problem up on the dunes especially is if you're moving in different areas, you loosen the sand, and then when the wind comes along, it blows all the loose sand away, and then all the trees, all the plants get their roots exposed to the air. They die off, they fall out, and then eventually the sand dune no longer exists. They're very fragile. They're classed as a stable dune system, but they are very fragile.
Just goes on for miles and miles, doesn't it?
That's right, yeah.
Man.
They've got a lot of names for this area. They call it the Outback, and Back of Beyond, the Red Centre, and the Red Heart. Big Sky Country. You can see why they call it Big Sky Country up here. Just have a look at the Olgas out there.
Wow.
Yeah.
You know, Ayres Rock gets all the notoriety, and it is a marvel, there's no question about
That's
it.
right.
But these things are incredible.
Yeah. Well, if they were another 500 kilometres further out in the desert, they'd be a tourist attraction in their own right, actually.
They're just too close to
They're
Ayres
too
Rock,
close
eh?
together, yeah. They're sort of overshadowed by Ayres Rock.
But what a perfect animal for riding out here, though, huh?
Yeah, very relaxing.
I read somewhere that Australia has the only wild camels left on Earth.
That's right. From the original 20,000 that were released in 1929, they've blown out to about 200 to 250,000 camels, and they're the only wild camels found anywhere in the world.
Well, there she is.
Yeah, that's the rock.
Man, you know, it doesn't matter where you see it from, under what lighting conditions, it is spectacular.
Yeah.
Uluru is the Aborigines' name for it, right?
That's right. There's no literal translation of Uluru. It doesn't really mean anything, but it's referred to as a meeting place because it was a place where a lot of the Aboriginal people used to come and meet and maybe exchange things like spears and boomerangs and have their sacred rituals, things like that. It just had certain significance for them. They had stories for each area.
You make trips every day out here?
Yeah, we do a morning trip. We leave every morning and come out and watch the sunrise. And we have a midday trip where we just sort of take people on a bit of a ramble around the block, so to speak. And then we do our main ride at night time, where we watch a sunset, which is what we're going to do tonight.
Yeah, that's going to be great.
Yeah.
And when it's all said and done, you haven't really experienced the outback unless you park your butt in the sand around a campfire in the middle of the desert and listen to an expert on Aboriginal culture. Darren, I was saying to Kim while we were riding the camels today that Ayres Rock gets all the notoriety. It's definitely the famous rock, if you will, but the Olgas are just incredible. How do the two differ?
I know that from an Aboriginal perspective that they hold many different stories, but everybody tends to focus on the rock itself, and there's plenty of stories there, and there's plenty of stories out at what we call Karajuda.
Karajuda, that's the Olgas,
that's what
right?
we know as the Olgas as well, yeah. For example, there was snake creatures that travelled to this area, blue-tongued lizard creatures, many different creatures that created the landscape in the area.
How do they account for its creation?
Well, it wasn't just created by one being, it was created by many beings. So there was many creation beings that travelled to this area, and all the different nooks and crannies and valleys and caves were actually created by these beings. And that's the way people are associated to the rock. So it was many different beings that created the rock, not just one. And I mean, if you do go down to the rock and learn some of these stories, you can actually see where these events took place. You can see how that cave was formed or why that scar is on the rock from the creation stories told to us by Aboriginal people.
Well, I can tell you from my version of it anyways, it definitely is spectacular, and you definitely go away with something a little special after you see it. I cannot remember being so inspired when I first saw that rock when we came over the hill driving down. I mean, it was just breathtaking. Thank you, gentlemen. It's been a pleasure.
Okay, thank
Cheers.
you. Cheers.